You are so beautiful to me. Don't you just love that song? Yeah. You are so beautiful to me. The song is designed for a romantic couple. You are so beautiful to me. But I chose that song to start this evening off with because it can have a broader meaning than that. Not just between romantic partners, but between everyone. You're everything I hope for, you're everything I need. You are so beautiful to me. Now, we're going to hear that little vignette a time or two before this presentation is over, because love is what it's all about, okay? Now, you look at the PowerPoint slides up here, and you see we're talking about a new psychology. We're going to be thinking outside the box. I got to tell you straight up, I'm going to do a real number on your belief system here, okay? So you need to be ready for this. We're going to question every single belief you've ever had, all right? And I mean that literally. We are going to think not outside the normal box. And let me describe what I mean by that. The normal box is, well, we've got an idea here, and so let's think about it a little bit differently, and we see now we can do something else with the idea, and that's thinking outside the box, and that's the way we normally think of things. In fact, the whole field of energy psychology, thanks to Roger Callahan, actually came from the idea of thinking outside the box. Therapy actually can and should combine with the acupuncture meridian system. Thinking outside the box, you are all outside the box thinkers or you wouldn't be here. You have taken the slings and arrows of your doubting clients over time, I'm sure, as I have. Now, where was I? So yeah, but we're going to think outside the box that contains all the other boxes. That's how far we're going, okay? And what I mean by that is we're going to think outside of the sensory box. See, the world that we see, the world that we live in, is reported to us through our senses. We see it, we hear it, we feel it, we smell it, we taste it, and so on. And that's how we know it's there. And so what we're going to explore here is what's outside of that, okay? Columbus sailed the ocean blue, you know, and that's about the time people really got the idea, well, maybe it's round because they're going around the world, and Columbus and his boats and all of that. But actually, scientists as long ago as the 6th century BC, which is 2,600 years ago, ancient Greeks were positing that the world was round. See how long it took for science to come in finally and show us that the world is round instead of flat? Beliefs are very hard to overcome. So what science finds then, after a while, is that the world is not flat. We found that our senses deceive us, and in fact, the world is round. Okay? And so that is our current belief. Anybody here not believe the world is round? Anybody here believe the world is round? Oh, come on. Anybody here believe the world is round? Thank you. You are so beautiful. But we are aided with our senses now by scientific discoveries. And since we've had spaceships and satellites go up and take a picture back of the Earth, as you see here, the world is indeed round. We see it with our senses. We know that it's round, don't we? Okay, we're going to go something different with this because the world is not flat and the world is not round. Are you ready for this one? Are you ready for this one? What is the world? It doesn't exist. Well, you laugh, okay? And I don't blame you because come on, Gary, you're telling me the world doesn't exist? I'm sitting here in the world listening to you. I'm in a building which is on this world, and I'm on a planet, and I'm glued to the floor by gravity which came from this planet. This world has oceans in it. I know it does, and everybody in this room that I talk to will agree with me that there is a world. Clearly, there's a world. You're telling me there isn't a world. Here because our senses report that to us, and that's very clear to us. Okay? However, as quantum physics tells us, there is no out there out there. I'm looking at all the doubting faces out there, you know. Because see, how can there be no out there if you are in there looking at me out here? Okay? Can't possibly be, can it? Okay? But the findings are, there is no out there. This is something like the people who believed in the flat earth. It took a very long time for science finally to come around and say, oh no, it's round, before we finally believed it. Had to have pictures, had to have everything, okay? But these findings are relatively new, a few decades old, but they certainly haven't made mainstream. Our reality is actually spiritually based. We are one, we are not separate. That's really tough. God, is that tough. You look around you and all you see is separate bodies. You and I both exist inside these little frames called bodies. And we look out, say we see other bodies, and those bodies are different than we are. They have different beliefs, they have different bank accounts, they have different names, they have different genders, they have different all kinds of stuff. No two are the same, but yet we're talking here about we're all being separate. That's all part of being the illusion. These all point to a new paradigm or a new psychology. I put quotes around the term new because while I'm pounding the table here for these ideas, they're not really new. The whole idea that we are spiritually based and not body based, I mean, that's at the centerpiece of many, many religious disciplines, okay? Many spiritual disciplines out there. So in that sense, it's not new. What I'm trying to do is put this together with some of the latest findings in it and give angles to it that allow us to grab onto it a little better and use it in a way with our clients in therapy practices that will take us to new levels. Now, 2 years ago, I retired from my large EFT site called emofree.com, and at the time, I said I was going to explore higher levels of healing, and that's precisely what I'm doing here and why I'm standing here today. But what I want to do is to remind you of something, those of you who read that retirement blog, of 2 points that I made at the end. EFT has 2 important features. One of those is what EFT does, and the other is where it points. And what I want to do here is I want to read to you what I wrote, just as a reminder. It said, the future, where to from here? EFT has 2 important features. One, what it does. As EFT does its magic. And by the way, I'm talking about EFT here, and as you know, that's what I represent and so on. I realize there are other disciplines out there, but the concepts we're talking about will be parallel throughout all of them. So allow me to use the EFT term because I'm more familiar with it. So I say this is fine. However, that is nowhere near as important as where it points. EFT is but the doorstep to a far grander palace of possibilities. EFT is way outside our normal experience, and its results cannot be properly explained by medicine or conventional science. As remarkable as it now seems, EFT is actually a toy that will someday be tossed away as a mere introduction to the exquisite beauty that is our birthright. It points to a future mental state where disease, war, resentments do not exist. This level cannot be reached, however, by more tapping points. It cannot be reached by the latest and greatest options for delivering EFT, or any of the other varied offerings that have found their way onto the EFT scene. Instead, it will require a new approach, a new way of thinking that may or may not be directly related to EFT. I will be exploring the upper reaches of this healing high-rise and have my sights on the penthouse. Perhaps we will meet there someday. So that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. And what I want to do now is go through what I call the persuasive pointers to a new paradigm, okay? A new way of thinking about this, a way of injecting these newer findings into the reality and the practicality of what we're doing. And the first thing, I have several things there. EFT is on the upper left-hand corner, so I'm going to start with that. We've already covered the point that EFT and the several energy psychology techniques out there have already taken us outside the normal box of thinking. But there's something we do with EFT that some of you are doing and others haven't done, and I wonder if we quite give it the weight it deserves, and that has to do with surrogate EFT. So what I've done here, a few years ago I did a workshop and we were experimenting with surrogate EFT. That is, I tap on myself in behalf of the client who doesn't tap at all, just sits there. And they can either sit across from me, by the way, or they can be 3,000 miles away, it doesn't matter. And so we were experimenting with these things, and what I want to do here is show you a 1.5-minute little video. This is Bobby, and Bobby came up as a volunteer. One, two, that works? Where did I leave off when I was so rudely interrupted? So anyway, Bobby came up on stage. She had a major lower back problem. It was a 0 to 10 scale. It was an 8 to 9 all day long. It had been that way. like this. This is outside the senses where this happens. But we see the results, so now our senses see something about that, so we can start to put something together. Something is going on somewhere, somehow. I have also done this. I was in Los Angeles a while back, and I had about 80 people in the room. And I asked the 80 people, of those 80 people, how many had some issue they wanted to work on? And I asked for a physical issue because it's a little easier to demonstrate. And about 60 of those put their hands up, okay? So what I did was I said, okay, you guys just sit there. I will leave the room, and I will tap for all of you. I'm gonna fix all of you, ha, ha, ha. And so, okay. So they did, and they whatever they did in the room, they talked or whatever, and I went outside the room for about 5 minutes, and I 50 of the hands went up. Interesting. Now that's me outside the room. Okay, they're sitting there talking to each other. They're not tapping at all. They don't even know what, they know what I'm supposed to be doing. They don't know what I was really doing, okay? And they get these results. There was one lady in the front row, I remember, she was astonished because she had there was a pain right beneath one of the breasts that had been there for years, and it was always at a 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, always at a 4, always. Okay? Gone. Completely gone. And I happened to talk to her a couple of weeks later on the telephone, still gone. Okay? Interesting, okay? But the point is, how does that happen? How is that possible unless we're somehow connected? And that's the message here. How is it possible unless we are not separate and somehow connected? Okay, we're back now to our little organization, if you will. And if you look up there at the top, it says accepted science. So I want to go through a few things, and I'm tiptoeing into this, by the way. We're going to get into deeper and deeper stuff as we go along. But there are things about accepted science that we have known for years about this general topic. And one of those is the fact that our senses are extraordinarily limited. For example, of the electromagnetic spectrum, all we see of it is a small part. Like if the entire electromagnetic spectrum spanned the distance from Los Angeles to New York, some 3,000 miles, the amount of that electromagnetic spectrum that we see is the length of your arm, okay? That's how tiny a piece of the entire electromagnetic spectrum that our eyes can see, that our eyes perceive. Now, we have science comes along and says, well, no, we got other gadgets. We can see infrared and ultraviolet. That's the extreme ends of these things. So we know they're there. And so we can do some scientific stuff with them and so on, and all that's fine. But our senses don't see it in everyday life. We don't know what 99.9999% of what we could see, if our eyes would allow us. We don't know what's really going on there. And yet, we have a phrase that we use with some frequency. It's called seeing is believing, right? I saw it with my own eyes, you know? And if you do that, that gives it credibility to you because you are giving weight to something that your senses tell you about, even though your senses are extraordinarily limited. Hearing is the same way. Just to use a simple example, dogs hear things we can't possibly hear. But that's just the beginning of it. I mean, there's a big, wide sound spectrum, and our ears only hear so much of it. And we only feel so many things and taste so many things and so on. So the point is, and we learned this, by the way, in roughly age 17 in school someplace. Okay, I didn't tell anybody something they didn't know at this point. But we sort of take it for granted. What are you going to do about it? I mean, so you can't see 99 or experience 99.99 whatever % of all of this stuff, and all you experience is what your senses will tell you. What are you going to do about it? Well, nothing. I mean, what can you do about it? Your senses tell you what's there. You use your senses. You get around through the world and so on, you know. But in addition to that, and this you may not have learned, you know, at age 17, but if you study science beyond that, you would have found that our scientists have discovered not the 3 dimensions we're used to, plus time, that makes 4 dimensions. They've discovered 11 dimensions. And we have no way of knowing what the other 7 are. We have no sensory data. We have nothing. And yet all this stuff is going on way outside of our ability to comprehend. It's way out there, okay? So we only experience a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the possibilities out there. And because that's all we have, that's all that works for us, we give it all the weight and we conduct our lives accordingly, but don't pay attention to what's outside.